Good morning, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. So, of course, as you're catching this live, let me know who's watching. Let me know what you're watching from. If you're getting ready from work, if you're just settling into the office, responding to some emails, let me know who's tuning in. And then if you're watching the replay, hashtag replay, let me know what time you're tuning in, what was interesting. I'd love to, thanks for watching and thanks for interacting with me. Good morning, Donna. How are you? How are you? Awesome. Good morning. So today is supposed to be the first day in a while that it is warm outside in Indianapolis. And Casey and I are going to take full advantage of that as soon as we get off of here. Good morning, everybody. Hey. Hi, Christy. Hey, Whitney. How are you? Thank you. Hey, Donna. Good morning, everybody. So let's get started. So today's Coffee with Jentry isn't going to be the craziest. It's not going to be any life-shattering information, but I didn't feel like I could talk about some of my future topics without talking first about the grocery store, because everything's going to be involved with the grocery store. So we're going to start there first. So we're going to talk about a few tips that I've learned over our recent healthy grocery store stopping. We're going to learn about what's best to buy in bulk. We're going to learn about when it's worth spending your money on organic and when maybe it's not. We're going to look about major ingredients to avoid and just talk about general get in, get out with a healthy cart kind of grocery store trips. So first and foremost, I think that everybody's grocery cart should look like their dinner plate, okay? And when I say that, this is what I mean. So without measuring your food out and counting calories extensively, as a general rule, everybody's dinner plate, if you cut it in half should be a non-starch vegetable, meaning it can be greens, green beans, peas, a salad, wilted lettuce, any Brussels sprouts, so any non-starch vegetable. And then about the bottom quarter, about 25% of your plate, should be your lean protein, whether that's meat or more vegan option. And then the other quarter should be your starch. So whether that's going to be a grain like quinoa or more like a potato or a sweet potato, along those lines. So if that's what your dinner plate is supposed to look like, that's what your grocery cart is supposed to look like. So when you look down at your grocery cart, about 50% of it should be produce, okay? So when you first walk into the grocery and you see that huge produce section, you should be spending 50% of your time there, 50% of your cart there. And then the rest of your cart should be those lean proteins and grains that we're going to talk about here in a second. Another general tip that I love is to shop the edges of the grocery store, because those are going to be your freshest and healthiest items. So that's going to be through the produce section, getting your vegetables and your fruits there, going back down the lean meats and the fresh meats, back to the back where usually the dairy is, the eggs, things like that. And then you're only going to walk those aisles to get those few things off of your list. Because if you're like me, and if you're definitely like my husband, and you spend time walking up and down that aisle, you're going to want to grab a lot more things that you don't necessarily need. And that leads me to my next point, is that you want to go with a list, and by golly, you stick with that list. That is your challenge, okay? So plan out your meals, plan on what you and your family eat, write it down on that list, and stick with the list. If you forget something, go back later during the week. But the best thing to do is not to stray too far off of that list. Another general tip is to not go hungry. We all know if we're hungry, everything sounds good. We give in to those cravings while we're at the grocery store. So don't go hungry. I also recommend, if you can help it, to not go during rush hour, because if you go during rush hour, it's going to be chaotic, it's going to be frustrating, and you're going to get in there, get frustrated, just grab. You may not be sticking with your list because you're just wanting to get out of there. You're also going to spend more time waiting in that line where all that impulse buy stuff is. So if you go hungry after work during rush hour, you're going to be staying 15 minutes in that line, looking at the pops, the sodas, the candy, the chips as you're going through that checkout. As another general rule, we always try to avoid fortified foods. So anything that has been significantly manipulated or changed prior to hitting the grocery store, avoiding those. Also, a cost-effective way is to avoid things that are eye level. If they're eye level at the grocery store, they're most likely your most expensive items. If you look up a little bit or look lower a little bit, you're likely going to find the same product for a cheaper cost. And then something that we do often, which I really love, is going 1 to 2 days a week without eating any animal products. So whether that's a Monday or a Thursday or something like that, try to have a whole day where you're not eating animal products. And that's going to save you some money because a lot of times animal products are your more expensive options. It's going to do really good things for your digestive tract, just trying to eat more plant-based on those days. And it's going to give you an opportunity to try things that you don't usually try, whether that's tempeh, whether that's tofu, whether that's chickpeas or quinoa, or learning how to get some proteins through non-animal products. It's a little bit more realistic in what our bodies and digestive systems are used to as far as a revolutionary or evolutionary standpoint. So, bulk things. So if you have a local grocery store that you can buy in bulk with like the scoop and you put it in your bag, some things that we find to be really cost effective to get there. Number one is nuts. They are going to be your best buy in bulk, hands down. That also goes for a trail mix. So a lot of times they'll make trail mixes pre-made. There's probably like 8 or 10 at the grocery store, and to get trail mix like that. We also like to buy our grains bulk. So quinoa, you can try different kinds like the red quinoa and things like that in bulk. Lentils. Let's see. Another thing we like to do is if you just want to taste something or try something and you just need maybe a cup of it for a recipe, go into buying it in bulk is also going to be a little bit more effective. Also, unusual spices, if you're just wanting to try a recipe that you don't eat often. If you go to like a Whole Foods or a smaller local food store, a lot of times they'll have rare spices in bulk where you can just buy a teaspoon or something like that instead of buying a $12 bottle of the spice. Olive oil, always get a bigger size olive oil. You're always going to use it. We buy chicken broth in bulk from like a bigger store like Costco. That makes it a little bit more cost effective as well. And then coffee. We like to buy our coffee in bulk too. So there's some cost effective ways. Next thing I want to talk about are things you do not want to eat. Things that should not be in that grocery cart. And this is going to take a little bit more time and learning and maybe some ingredient label shopping. Number one is artificial sweeteners, okay? There is more evidence suggesting there are harmful effects and adverse reactions to artificial sweeteners than any other additive out there, okay? So if you're out there and you're like, oh, my kids don't eat dyes, and oh, I don't do this and I don't do that, but you're drinking Diet Coke all day, that's the worst thing for you. So that should be your first focus and goal, is getting away from those diet drinks. The next would be high fructose corn syrup. This is a really hard one to avoid if you buy any packaged foods because it's a really cheap way for them to add sugar and sweetener, but there is no value at all to high fructose corn syrup. The next one I want to talk about is MSG, or monosodium glutamate. So this is an additive found in a lot of canned goods. What's interesting is we found that it actually interacts with the neurotransmission system of the I'm full message that your brain gets, which I think is really interesting. So avoiding that completely, and again, that's going to be found in more canned goods. Trans fats. So trans fats were created a couple decades ago. This is like your margarine to increase the shelf life of fats and dairy fats. But it has been most linked with LDL cholesterol, which is your bad cholesterol. It also lowers your HDL, or your good cholesterol, and it's actually banned in several countries. So if you're going to consume fat, it should never, ever, ever be a trans fat. Food dyes. So I just mentioned food dyes a second ago. The debate is still out technically on whether or not these cause a lot of the concerns that we have in our children as far as behavioral concerns, neurodevelopmental concerns, things like that. But I did want to bring up a few that people are specifically concerned about and that they're actively doing research on. And that is blue 1 and blue 2, red 3, and yellow 6. Those are the main 4 that they're saying are most likely to be linked, and they're doing research actively on that now. But I don't think you need any dye added to your food. What is the nutritional value of that? So avoiding those, even before the debate is out, I think is the healthiest idea. Sodium sulfite, so this is for my wine drinkers. Red wine has a lot of sulfite in it. Particularly if you're an asthmatic, you should pay attention to this. There's about a 1% of the population that's sensitive to sulfites, and these are usually asthmatics. So if you're having troubles controlling your asthma, if you're using that inhaler a lot and you can't quite figure out why, maybe think about cutting out red wine or doing a lower sulfite wine to help you manage that asthma a little bit better. The last one I talk about is sodium nitrite. This is found in a lot of meats, so it's a color additive to make raw meats that brighter red color that we want to look for in the grocery store. It's also added to a lot of prepackaged meats and deli meats. It is a known carcinogen. So a lot of times people are like, I'm eating healthy, I'm getting my turkey sandwiches, that's great, but watch for this nitrate because you definitely don't want to be consuming that. And then I also want to talk about next are just some basics that everybody should have in their pantry for those late nights, those quick nights as a family. You're getting home from ball practice, you're getting home late from work, and you just need to whip something up. And you would normally order pizza, and here's a healthier option for you. So things that Casey and I always have in our pantry, and we could throw something together at any time. Number one is going to be quinoa. So if we don't have any meat in the house, we know we're getting some good protein, good fiber from the quinoa. Chicken stock. If you make your quinoa with water, you're missing out. We always make ours with low sodium chicken stock. We just use that as a replacement for water. It significantly improves the flavor, and you don't have to add much else to it at that point in time. Beans. So eat tons of beans. We usually eat black beans, but also like chickpeas a lot. Diced tomatoes to make any type of stew. Green beans, canned corn, a few of the canned vegetables, those can be healthy options for late snacks or additives to your meal. Also frozen vegetables is an idea. And then whenever you go to the store and you see a couple different meats that are on sale, just grab a couple and stick them in your freezer. You can thaw them out in the morning and then you're good to go. So those are a few basics that we always have. And this is what I've done the most research on in the last week or two is when to buy organic and when to save your money. Because a lot of us, I think, know the benefits of eating organic, but can't afford to fill our grocery cart full. Has anyone ever experienced that? Like, I want to, oh my gosh, those are so expensive. I don't know which is worth my money. So that's definitely something I want to talk about. So I went with the Environmental Working Group, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan group that measures the residue on our produce to see how high those residues are. So what I found is hurting my soul a little bit because they're saying that the two most important things to buy organic is wine and coffee. And that blew my mind. But what they're saying is that wine is fermented with the skins on them. So if they're not washed completely, the juice and everything as it's being created are sitting in those skins, and so that residue is being taken up. And the next is coffee, which also hurt my soul a little bit because I don't buy organic coffee or never have before, just being truthful. But it makes total sense, right? Because they're grown in very lush, shaded environments, lots of pests, lots of other plant life growing in around them. So they take more spraying than any other produce out there on the market, any other product out there on the market. They're sprayed the most. And before, we believed that most of that spraying and the chemicals and the insecticides and stuff on them was removed during the coffee making process. However, think about how much coffee we drink. Think about, look at my cup here. It's amazing, but I drink this every day. Some days I drink 2 of these. And just that compounding residue build up in my body, even if it's not as high as some of the other produce, I'm not eating asparagus twice every single day. I'm not eating grapes twice daily every single day, but I don't often go without my coffee. So those would be 2 huge investments. Other things would be apples, blueberries, celery, tomatoes, cucumbers, grapes, peppers, leafy greens, and strawberries. Those are kind of the top list of the highest residues of insecticides and pesticides on the produce. So those would be the ones that would be your best bang for your buck to save, to spend your money on and go organic. Things not worth going organic on: asparagus, avocado, sweet corn, pineapple, cabbage, cauliflower and broccoli, cantaloupe and kiwi, mango, papaya, eggplant, and honeydew. So these all found to have naturally quite low residue on them. So I would just buy the regular produce, but of course wash it very, very thoroughly. As a general rule, in my opinion, if you peel it, if it's something that you have to peel, if you're not eating the outside skin, so think of like bananas, if you peel your kiwi, anything that has that skin that you're taking off, I don't buy organic on those. I buy just regular produce because I'm not eating the outside piece. My last piece I want to talk about before letting you guys all get off to work is cooking at home. So if you are not a home cooker and all of a sudden you're gonna think about doing it, increase your grocery store buying, cooking those meals with your family at home, number one thing I want to tell you is to not overwhelm yourself. Don't go buy this Rachel Ray cookbook with 15 ingredients, most of which you don't have in your pantry. You're going to spend $30 in spices and you're going to be overwhelmed. So go simple, start simple. If you never cook, shoot for 2 meals a week for the next month. So you're going to make 8 meals. You have time to plan out those meals. Try to find meals that's limited ingredients. So something like 5 to 10 ingredients in that meal, and something with limited pots. So you're not overwhelmed with 4 different pots going on at the stove at the same time. Make this fun, make this interactive with your kids. Enjoy the process, because if you go and you have a 30 ingredient meal, you thought it'd take you 45 minutes, it takes you 2.5 hours later, your kids are up late and you're overwhelmed, you're not gonna do it again, okay? So keep it simple, plan for success, do within your limits, and then grow as you enjoy the process. If you don't use a crock pot or Instapot, you should, okay? These are amazing. They come with timers. You can throw all your ingredients in, and you don't even have to season it a whole lot, because the cooking process makes it so tender, so moist, so juicy, so flavorful without spending a whole bunch of money on seasonings. We love, love, love using our crock pot. So those are my general recommendations. Like I said, not usually as fun, not as exciting as what I usually want to have our coffee with Jentry in the mornings, but I didn't feel like we could talk about some of our future topics without first talking about the grocery store, okay? So I'm going to leave you guys with a mantra. You know, like I said last week, mantras are really big to me. I really like to have something in my mind that keeps me on track, keeps me focused, and this week's mantra is the greatest wealth is health. The greatest wealth is health. So if you're not investing in your health, what wealth do you have? Okay? And this is huge. This is so important. Think about the longevity you want to have. Don't think about how you feel today or how busy the day is. Think about how you want to be in 10 years and 20 years. And invest in your body now to give you those years of longevity with vitality in them. Okay? So the greatest wealth is health. Another thing I wanted to mention really quick before I pop off of here is that I know I just gave you a whole bunch of lists. I know I just gave you a whole bunch of information to do or don't do, and that kind of drives me crazy on social media when it's like the 10 things never to or the 7 things you must do. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm only getting through my day. That's all I'm trying to do. So if you're one of those people that I just overwhelmed you and you're scrabbling down everything I'm writing, first of all, know that this is going to be saved and it's going to be on my page and you can access it later. But also know that there are other ways, that there are ways to get these nutrients in your body without the overwhelm of the grocery store. So if you're interested, if you're like, yes, I value my body, yes, I value my health, yes, I want to be here in 100 years with my kids, but I cannot deal with reading nutrition labels in the grocery store, and I cannot keep myself out of those aisles. And if I don't know how to create a balanced meal, send me a message, because I found a better way that gives me and my husband nutrition without as much stress in the grocery store, okay? So remember, the greatest wealth is health. Shop the outside edges. Your grocery cart should look like your dinner, and avoid those things that we talked about. Let me know if you enjoyed this. Let me know, start talking to me for what was helpful. If you've had any tips with you and your family that you found to be really successful, particularly moms getting through the grocery store with kids. I think lots of us can benefit from those insight and stories. And then next week, we're going to be talking about intermittent fasting. So this is huge. It's all over the internet right now, and I'm going to talk about how to do it, different ways to do it, what's the science behind it. Is it a fad diet? Is it here to stay? So be sure to tune in next week to learn about intermittent fasting. You guys have a fabulous Wednesday. Thanks so much for checking in. I'm going to post this on my wall and on the other page as well, so always check back to it later if you didn't have time to write down those lists. And you guys have a great day. Take care.